The origin of humanity revealed what happened before. Official history. What if everything you've been told about the origin of humanity is wrong? Before writing, before the pyramids, even before what science calls civilization, something else existed. A hidden chapter, forgotten, or maybe deliberately erased from official history. Today, we're diving into the mysteries archaeology avoids, the stories textbooks ignore, and the evidence that challenges everything you think you know about where we come from. Get ready. What you're about to discover might just change your entire view of human history. The world we live in feels normal, familiar even. It's easy to believe that this is just how humans have always lived, with cities, technology, comfort, and safety. But the truth is, nothing about this life is natural. This world is an artificial bubble, built on agriculture, fossil fuels, and centuries of accumulated knowledge. For nearly all of our existence, humans were nomadic foragers, constantly moving through wild environments, not reshaping them, adapting, not controlling. Today, we take this stability for granted, but we are the outliers, a brief anomaly. For more than 99.99% of human existence, life looked nothing like this. And the idea of one single clear human history, that's a comforting illusion. Our real story begins around 6 million years ago, when our ancestors, the early hominids, split from the lineage of the great apes. Then, around 2.8 million years ago, the first members of our genus, Homo, emerged. But we weren't alone. When Homo sapiens sapiens came on the scene 200,000 years ago, we shared the Earth with at least 6 other human species. They weren't just evolutionary detours. They were intelligent, capable, and strangely familiar. Living among them might have felt like living with aliens who looked just enough like us to unsettle us. It must have felt like living among aliens. Some of these other human species were incredibly successful. Homo erectus, for example, survived for over 2 million years. That's 10 times longer than Homo sapiens have existed. But eventually, one by one, all the others vanished. The last disappeared around 10,000 years ago, and we still don't know exactly why. We do know that modern humans carry fragments of their DNA, a few percent from Neanderthals and Denisovans, and possibly from other, still unknown human species. Their bones are gone, but their genes remain. There was some interbreeding, but not enough to fuse the species. So did our cousins lose the battle for resources? Or were they erased by waves of quiet, forgotten genocides? Either way, only we remain, the last surviving line in a once crowded family tree. Going back to our beginnings, 2.8 million years ago, early humans used tools. In fact, some sites show ancient factories where tools were made in series, early signs of mass production. But there was little technological progress for nearly 2 million years until we learned to control fire. Fire changed everything. It meant cooking, which made food more digestible and nutritious. This led to a smaller gut, a smaller jaw, and freed energy for brain growth. Fire also brought warmth and light, extending our days and softening brutal winters. It scared predators, but it also became a hunting tool, burning forests to flush out animals and expose roots, nuts, and tubers, often already roasted. In a way, fire was our first real superpower, one that began shaping not only our lives, but the entire landscape around us. Most of the different human species lived in small hunter-gatherer societies, scattered across vast territories. They had fire, wooden and stone tools, and they weren't just surviving. They were planning, adapting. They buried their dead with care and developed distinct cultures. Some may have decorated tools or created symbolic objects. And most importantly, they spoke, likely in a proto-language. It wasn't as complex as ours, but even basic language allowed them to share knowledge, plan hunts, and pass on survival strategies. It was the spark of collective intelligence, of culture. Now here's a strange question. If we had a time machine, how far back could we go, steal a few babies, raise them today, and have no one notice they were from the deep past? It's unsettling, but scientists actually debate this. Anatomically, modern humans appeared 200,000 years ago with the same skeletal structure we have today. But bones don't tell the whole story. What matters is behavior, thought, culture, imagination. That's why many believe we'd need to stop around 70,000 years ago. That's when something shifted, the cognitive revolution. Humans began imagining things that didn't exist, spirits, stories, gods. They organized, collaborated, and passed down abstract ideas. That moment marks the birth of humans, not just in body, but in mind. Before that, those ancient babies would likely have lacked a few crucial genetic mutations, small changes that would one day allow for complex language, imagination, and abstract thought. Then, around 50,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. A sudden surge of innovation. Tools became more intricate, weapons more efficient, and cultural expression exploded. Cave paintings, jewelry, rituals. This wasn't just random progress. It marked the point where humans developed a flexible, multi-purpose brain, capable of simulating possibilities and using language to transfer detailed knowledge from mind to mind. This shift allowed for something no other creature on Earth can match: massive, flexible cooperation. Not because of our strength, we're physically unimpressive, but because we could build invisible realities together. Unlike rigid beehives or tight wolf packs, humans formed large, coordinated groups based on shared beliefs, goals, or stories. Our brains crossed a threshold that evolution had never breached before. We could now do 3 revolutionary things. First, expand knowledge rapidly within a lifetime. Second, preserve it across generations using memory, language, and eventually symbols. Third, compound it, layering old knowledge to invent the new. It might sound simple, but until then, most information passed through DNA, painfully slow and inflexible. Even so, for the next 40,000 years, human life on the surface didn't look radically different. But beneath the skin, something had changed forever. There simply wasn't much to build upon. Our ancestors were just one species among many, living within nature rather than shaping it. Trying to build a skyscraper without first understanding how to build a simple hut is nearly impossible. And yet, it's easy for us to look back with arrogance, to see ancient humans as primitive, but that's a huge mistake. Humans living 50,000 years ago weren't dumb. They were survival specialists, elite by necessity. They carried incredibly detailed mental maps of vast, untamed territories. Their senses were fine-tuned to track prey, detect danger, and read the weather and the wind. They knew hundreds of plant species, their uses, and the behavior of animals across seasons. Making tools required years of training, fine motor skills, and intergenerational knowledge. Their physical strength and endurance just from daily life would rival and sometimes surpass modern athletes. They also lived in tightly connected tribal societies with rich emotional lives, rituals, and complex relationships. Survival back then demanded such a wide range of cognitive and physical skills that the average brain volume of early modern humans may have actually been larger than it is today. As a species, we now know more, but as individuals, our ancestors were likely sharper, tougher, and far more capable in nature. And then, everything changed. Around 12,000 years ago, in scattered places across the world, humans began something radical. The invention of agriculture. Everything changed fast, almost unnaturally fast. In the past, survival as a hunter-forager demanded sharp physical and mental skills from everyone. Every person had to master a wide range of tasks just to stay alive. But with the rise of agriculture, something shifted. People could now depend on the skills of others. This opened the door to something new: specialization. Some focused on improving tools, others on breeding hardier crops or stronger animals. A few even had time to think, to invent, to question. As farming became more productive, a surplus emerged, and with it, the earliest seeds of what we now call civilization. Agriculture gave us a steady, predictable food source. For the first time, humans could store large amounts of food, especially grains, which last far longer than meat. But hoarded food needed to be protected. This pulled people into tighter living arrangements and led to the first permanent settlements. Simple fences became defense walls. With that came leadership, conflict, and hierarchy. The more we organized, the faster we advanced. Villages evolved into towns, towns into cities, cities into kingdoms, kingdoms into empires. What began as an effort to feed ourselves would end up reshaping everything: power, identity, belief. Human connections exploded. Ideas flowed across regions and generations like never before. And with that came the rise of something new: shared knowledge. Progress began feeding on itself, growing exponentially. About 500 years ago, the scientific revolution ignited. Mathematics, physics, astronomy, biology, chemistry, they rewrote the rules of reality. And not long after, the Industrial Revolution reshaped the world again, laying the blueprint for modern life. As machines multiplied human effort and technology lifted the weight of survival, more people than ever had the chance to devote their lives to pushing human progress forward. One wave of revolution followed another. The invention of the computer, its evolution into a tool we now use constantly, the rise of the internet, connecting billions of minds in real time. The speed is dizzying. Let's zoom out. It's been about 125,000 generations since the first human species emerged. About 7,500 generations since humans like us first appeared. Civilization itself? That only started 500 generations ago. Science as we know it? Just 20 generations old. And the internet, this invisible web tying the world together, has only been widely available for one single generation. We are living in the most prosperous, most connected, and most accelerated moment in all of human history. The question now is, where does it go from here? We've reshaped this planet, not just its surface, but its very atmosphere. We've altered ecosystems, redirected rivers, wiped out species, and planted artificial stars in the night sky. We've launched people in metal capsules above the clouds and even sent a few to walk on the moon. We've placed robotic scouts on alien worlds and built machines that stare into the ancient past of the universe, decoding light that's billions of years old. Our ability to gain, store, and multiply knowledge has exploded beyond anything nature had ever seen. A typical high school student today knows more about physics, space, and biology than the greatest scholars of just a few centuries ago. Humanity doesn't just inhabit Earth anymore, we dominate it, even if that dominance feels precarious. Because underneath it all, we're still mostly the same as our ancestors from 70,000 years ago, physically, emotionally, biologically, and yet, the life you live today, it represents less than 0.001% of all human history, a microscopic blink in time. From this point forward, no one knows what comes next. We're building something enormous, a skyscraper of progress, of knowledge, of dreams, but we don't know whether its foundation is solid or if we're building it atop quicksand. Let's leave it at that for now. Next time you miss a train, your burger's a little too cold, or someone cuts in line at the grocery store, take a breath. Try to remember just how wild and rare this made-up human world really is. How far we've come from hunting with sticks and sleeping under stars. Maybe, just maybe, it's not worth getting upset over the small stuff. Right? This was our very first take on making a history-focused video. We'd love to create more of them. There's so much more to tell. But they take even more time and effort than our usual videos. So we might only be able to make 3 or 4 per year. That's why your feedback is extra important here. Thank you so much for watching. Seriously, if you'd like to support us directly and help us make more of this kind of content, you can do that on Patreon. It really makes a difference. And while you think it over, here are some more videos for you. If your brain needs a little more curiosity-fueled distraction, we've got you.